Mr. Benjamin, I know coming out of the last meeting, we had asked Customs to give us an indication of the entities that enjoy a similar tax-exempt status. I know you were compiling a list. I know you had clarified whether we wanted the transactions, which would have been onerous, but just to have an understanding of which entities enjoy a similar status.
Okay, Mr. Chairman. So we have categorized the entities. So they are charitable organizations, educational institutions. There is the exemption also for government projects for economic development, and these are where the government would enter into contracts, particularly with large overseas entities, and they would send those contracts down to customs, indicating in the body of the contract that the items are to be entered duty-free. So, for example, when we did the Southern Coast Highway, that would be one such project. Then there's also the $10 million monthly discretionary waiver that the minister gives, and that is published on the Ministry of Finance website. There's also the motor vehicle concessions. There is the remissions under their own act, like UHWI, the bauxite entities, the UTEC. Then there is diplomats and international organization. And there's also entities that are approved under the Fiscal Incentive Act. So we're talking about approved manufacturers, approved primary producers, mostly farmers would fall right there. Shipments for doctors/medical facilities that are approved by the Ministry of Health under the FIA as well. And that is a finite listing. I think it's limited to about 3 tariff headings. Then there is shipments for the hotels and attractions that are approved by the Ministry of Tourism. And there's also the shipments approved by the Ministry of Culture, Gender, for artisans, musicians, music producers. So those are the broad heading. If we were to drill down, it would be a large component, because almost for the manufacturers alone, we have like over 1,000 manufacturers that enjoy some concessionary benefits. If we are going to farmers, there are probably about another 1,000 farmers there that are registered under RADA that are entitled to benefits there as well.
And from a risk management perspective, what do you have a process to periodically either do an audit or do checks to determine whether the status is being used in the way it was designed?
Yes, we do. So we have both the post-clearance audit and we have our incentive unit. So the incentive unit works primarily with the approval process for the manufacturers. They actually visit the facilities, they look around, they ensure that they are in compliance, and they do periodic visits. In the case of persons who get certain products, they have to send in quarterly production reports, and from that quarterly production report, we will determine whether or not they are able to get additional benefits.
All right, thank you. In relation, the last time you were here, you had indicated that of the 4 entities that were identified by the Auditor General, you had completed a report on 1, but you were fairly advanced in completing the other 3. Can you provide us with an update on that?
All right. So they're not quite finished. They have in the process of reviewing. Each of them have different complexities. For example, let me give you a point. JACDEN would have shown that it was imported by UHWI for UHWI. However, the one for Wilmon Sales would have come with a purchase order from the university. You would have seen where the person with financial responsibility was Wilmon Sale. You would have also seen UWI as the declarant. So it was a bit different because it didn't show where they were trying to say that we had nothing to do with the shipment, for want of a better word. You would have seen where they would have properly declared that we have a purchase order from UWI. We have presented that to customs. We are declaring that we are paying for it. They went as far as to say that the goods will not be handed over to UWI until UWI has paid them the monies because they are using a purchase order. We are going to check further because we want to know whether or not it was properly done in the first place, whether or not they actually had the capacity to utilize the benefit in that manner. Was it a part of the tendering process? Were all of the bidders aware that this was something that would have been available to them? So when they were doing their bid, that would have been taken into consideration, or was this done on the back end? So that's the second part that we actually have to verify.
Are you in a position to give us a time frame as to when you think you can complete the other three?
By the end of June.
By the end of June, okay. All right. Thank you. Members, any questions on what the head of customs just said?
I don't know if I was hearing the acting CEO correctly, but I
Sorry, Mr. Mean, can you, because of the fans, just
Yes.
talk a little louder so we can
yes, I understand the CEO was trying to make a distinction between two particular companies. In one instance, he mentioned Jacden, and I may be wrong, but I think he said that on the face of it, you could not say that the items were for the benefit of UWI, while for the other companies, from the documentation, it was abundantly clear that it was connected to UWI, up to the point that UWI was, was the declarant in that particular case. So I don't know if he could confirm if that's what he is actually saying.
Right. So what we're saying, to be very clear, is that in the case of Jacden, you would have just seen an invoice. You would not have seen anything to connect Jacden, save and except when one went further and beyond the declaration to look at the bill of lading, and you would have seen that the address was their address, 18.5 Lindus Road. I think that is the address. But in the case of the Wilmot sales declaration, you would have seen where they would have declared on the face of the declaration that they are the person with financial responsibility, that they have a purchase order because they did provide said purchase order signed and stamped by the UHWI. So I'm saying that it is clear that there was some level of connection in that instance, but not so clear in the first instance because it was just the invoice. And we have come later now to find out that the shipment was actually for Jacden because it was at Jacden.
All right, thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Benjamin. Mr. Chai Chow, I'm just going to ask you, again, you have introduced yourself, but just to indicate how long you served as board chair, and also Mrs. Thwaites, if you could just do the same as well so that we have a context in terms of the period of time you served on the board.